Serkworks Art Labs is now partnering with Acme Products. Can I interest anyone in a portable hole? Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome to the Underground Laboratory, where from time to time we pay tribute to the mad scientists, supervillains, and evil geniuses that help shape our world as we induct a very special person into, is it a person? I don't know if it's a person. Animal? Canine? There's a word I'm looking for. What is that word? Anyway, we are going to induct Wile E. Coyote as our first inductee into the Mad Genius Hall of Fame. And in order to do this, we need to commission a drawing, a portrait, if you will, of Wile E. so we can put him on the Wall of Fame. Now, who else is going to do that? I think I'll do it. I think I will do the drawing. So, and I'm going to show you how we do that. So, let me get the pencil. We got the pad of paper. Let's get into it.
It's fitting that Wile E. Coyote would be our first inductee into the Mad Genius Hall of Fame. Some of the first cartoons I remember from my childhood were the Roadrunner shorts. And I don't know if it was because I was born and raised in Arizona and the Roadrunner cartoons took place in the American Southwest. Not only was that setting familiar to me, because I would, I'd go on like trips with my parents and whatever, and there'd be a Roadrunner running across the street. And of course, you see coyotes from time to time. You even see them nowadays in the park by my house. But I could see like Roadrunners and coyotes in real life in their natural habitat. So I think that sort of resonated with me and kind of gave me a connection to those cartoons. But Wile E. Coyote was also a huge influence on what I'm trying to do with Serkworks. What I want Serkworks Art Lab to be is like for mad scientists and evil genius what the Acme Corporation was to the coyote. So for this series, I want to give some facts about our inductees, but I also want to talk about the process of creating these portraits themselves. So for this portrait, I'm using Kona Classic artist paper, and classic basically just means tan. They also make a gray color, but I prefer the classic color. It's a nice paper. It's made from recycled coffee bean bag fibers, and it has a nice look and feel to it. The pencils I'm using are Prismacolor Color Erase pencils. I really like these pencils. They have a slight waxiness to them, so they don't really smudge and everything. But yeah, they're my preferred pencil of choice nowadays. So a little bit about Wile E. Coyote. He was created by legendary animation director Chuck Jones, and what he was trying to do is he's trying to parody the cat and mouse genre of cartoons, like Tom and Jerry. But what ended up happening was that the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, they sort of ended up surpassing all those other cartoons in popularity, and they became sort of the new normal or the gold standard for those type of shorts. So now when you describe something like that, you always point to Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. Jones based the character of Wile E. Coyote on a quote from Mark Twain in his 1972 story Roughing It, and the quote describes the coyote. The coyote is a long, slim, sick, sorry-looking skeleton. He is a living, breathing allegory of want. So, and that pretty much sums up the coyote as he's depicted in the Roadrunner cartoons. Wile E. Coyote first appeared in the 1949 cartoon Fast and the Furious with his arch nemesis, the Roadrunner. And the pair wouldn't return until 3 years later with their second outing, 1952's Beep Beep. After that, the duo would go on to star in over 40 cartoons, including the Oscar-nominated 1961 short Beep Prepared. But the Roadrunner wasn't the coyote's only adversary. He also appeared in 5 shorts with Bugs Bunny, beginning with 1952's Operation Rabbit. The cartoons featuring Bugs Bunny were the only cartoons where the coyote would actually speak, and Wile E. Coyote was voiced by the man of 1,000 voices, Mel Blanc. And if you know anything about Looney Tunes cartoons, you know that Mel Blanc pretty much voiced almost all of the characters, so that's no surprise. But Blanc used a kind of a sophisticated faux English accent for Wile E. Coyote, and he always referred to himself as Wile E. Coyote Genius. and that's probably one of the reasons why he is in the Mad Genius Hall of Fame. So Wile E. Coyote would never speak when featured in any of the Roadrunner shorts. In fact, there was no dialogue in any of the Roadrunner cartoons, with the exception of the Roadrunner's signature beep beep. Everything you would see would be pantomime, or sometimes they would hold up signs, or there would be subtitles. Sometimes you'd have the little descriptions on the bottom is when the Roadrunners first and Coyote would first show up, and it would pause and you get that description of them and everything. So, you know, based on that, there are quite a few rules that sort of govern the cartoons. Rule number one, and like I said, I'll go ahead and read these rules out to you. Rule number one, the Roadrunner cannot harm the Coyote except by going beep beep. Rule number two, no outside force can harm the Coyote, only his own ineptitude and the failure of the Acme products. Rule number three, the Coyote could stop at any time if he weren't a fanatic. And a fanatic is described as someone who redoubles their efforts when he has forgotten his aim. Rule number four, no dialogue except for beep beep. We talked about that one. Rule number five, the Roadrunner must stay on the road. Otherwise, logically, he would not be called the Roadrunner. Rule number six, all action must be confined to the natural environments of the two characters, the American Southwest. Rule number seven, all materials, tools, weapons, or mechanical contrivances must be obtained by the Acme Corp. Rule number eight, whenever possible, make gravity the Coyote's greatest enemy. And finally, rule number nine, the Coyote is always more humiliated than harmed by his failures. So if you've watched any Coyote cartoons, you'll notice that, like, if he falls from a big cliff, sometimes he'll get squished and he's just like a head and feet, and it'll kind of wander off like a little accordion. But it's always played for humorous effect, and he's usually more or less unharmed, and by the next scene he's back at it again. So I want to turn our attention back to the drawing and describe some of the tools that I'm using. So the markers that I use a variety of different markers. I use Copic markers, I use Spectrum Noir markers, and I use Pantone Tria markers for the most part. But I'll use whatever sort of alcohol-based marker I can get my hands on. And with this, I'm doing a little bit of a different technique. A lot of times I'll actually ink the drawing first and then I'll do markers, but I kind of like the effect of doing the markers and then going back over that and sort of adding in the lines. So it might look a little weird until I get to the end, but it should all come together. And we'll talk about like the inks and some of the final tools that I use for that coming up. But let's go back to the character of the Coyote. Now, I have people swear to me that no, I think the Coyote also spoke in some cartoons that didn't have Bugs Bunny, and I think what they are referring to is another character, because Wile E. Coyote has a doppelganger. Ralph Wolf is another Looney Tunes character who starred in 7 shorts with Sam the Sheepdog from 1953 to 1963. And Ralph Wolf is pretty much identical to Wile E. Coyote, except that he has a red nose and white eyes. And for the most part, Wile E. Coyote always has yellow eyes. I've seen sometimes, I don't know if it's just oversight or something, but sometimes you'll see him with white eyes. But for the most part, Wile E. Coyote has kind of yellow eyes, which I think is a great effect because it's got that craziness to it and that, you know, tiredness. And so it's a pretty cool effect, and I always like to see when Wile E. Coyote has those yellow eyes. Ralph Wolf always has the red nose, always has the white eyes, and if you remember those cartoons, Ralph Wolf also used Acme products, but he wasn't as much of a fanatic as the Coyote. In fact, the central gag of the Wolf and Sheepdog cartoons were that it was just a job. Ralph Wolf would go in, both of them would go in and punch a clock. You know, it was like, hey Ralph, hey Sam, they go in, they punch a clock, and then the wolf would try to catch the sheep, not Roadrunners. And then, of course, he would be foiled. And then at the end of the day, they'd punch out and they'd go back to like a normal everyday life. So it was just sort of a job for them. And I always loved those cartoons too. And as a kid, like most people, I thought that Ralph Wolf was the Coyote. But no, they're two entirely different characters. So even though Ralph Wolf would from time to time use Acme products, I think it's safe to say that the Coyote was the master of Acme products, and he used so many of them, and they're all very hilarious. And my favorites are the crazy Rube Goldberg X machines that were just so elaborate and really did not a whole lot of anything. But he used so many Acme products, so I'm going to list a few of my personal favorites. So here are some products, just some of the things that you can order from the Acme Corporation. Rocket-powered roller skates, dehydrated boulders, a tornado kit, high-speed tonic, a jet-propelled pogo stick, earthquake pills, invisible paint, magnetic guns, molecular transporters, and of course tons and tons of birdseed. He would always, he'd always put weird things in the birdseed or use birdseed as a trap. So Acme Corporation sold crazy inventions, but they also sold a lot of birdseed. So because the Acme products were just so unreliable and they would just never work, there was a conspiracy theory floating around, or there is one floating around, that the Roadrunner is actually the CEO of Acme, and he builds all these products and puts defects in them to foil the Coyote. And I don't really care for this theory. I like the idea that the Roadrunner is just this kind of clueless bird. He's just minding his own business, and despite whatever the Coyote does, even though the Roadrunner is just going about his regular everyday tasks or whatever, just running around, that the Coyote's inventions and the Coyote's means of trying to capture the Roadrunner always backfire him. I like that idea. I don't like the idea of the Roadrunner kind of running this thing and being this mastermind. Plus, I guess you would have to assume that the Coyote was the only one, of course, we've talked about Ralph Wolf as well, but the only one using Acme products, because a lot of people I think would get killed or maimed by the Roadrunner by making all these faulty products. So I don't really like that theory. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know if you kind of like that or not. But yeah, I'm maybe more of a purist. And it also goes back to some of the rules that the Roadrunner's just the only way you can harm him is by going beep beep. And I like that idea. Not too crazy about some of the conspiracy theories. But so all these Acme products and everything, you imagine there's got to be a pretty hefty price tag for all these inventions, and you might wonder how the Coyote can afford all this stuff. Well, my theory is that he can afford all these products because he makes a little money on the side from being an advertising spokesman. Wile E. Coyote has pitched and done commercials for the following major brands: Energizer batteries, Geico, Shell Oil, Pepsi, Honey Nut Cheerios, and Aflac. So if you've done those type of commercials for those type of things, you probably earn a little bit of cash. And not to mention, he's also had cameos in a bunch of TV shows and films and the like. He had a cameo in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He had a cameo in Family Guy, Night Court, The Simpsons. He even appeared in sort of the background of a Scooby-Doo cartoon, sort of in the window. You could see him if you look carefully. And not to mention the Looney Tune movies. He was, of course, in Space Jam and Looney Tunes Back in Action. So yeah, I think he made a little bit of cash for those appearances. So back to the drawing. Now we're getting into some of the inking, and what I use for the inking is I use an ink called Deleter Black number 5. It's sort of a manga ink, and it's my favorite ink. It goes on really smooth and everything. But again, and you can do this however you want. Like I said, you can either ink first and you can go in with the marker, because the good thing about the Deleter Black is that it doesn't smudge at all. But this technique I'm using a little differently. I'm going over the color with the lines, and I'm using a Cotman watercolor brush. It's a nice economical watercolor brush, but it works great for inks, and it's a little less expensive than some of the other brushes I use, like the Winsor Newton Series 7. I use those a lot as well. So yeah, those are the type of tools I use, brushes and ink and everything. You'll see that I finish everything off with a Uniball Sino white gel pen, and that'll just kind of make that character kind of pop off the page. When you got that sort of tan background, that classic Kona paper, and you go around it with a white outline, it just kind of pops the whole thing out. I really like that effect. And then sometimes I'll go in with just a regular Prismacolor, not the Color-Race, but the regular Prismacolor pencils, just a white, and just add some little highlights there as well. So I hope you're liking the portrait. I'm hoping you agree with me that Wile E. Coyote makes an excellent addition. Well, I say addition, but he's the first one, and with good reason. But hopefully you agree with me that he belongs in the Evil Genius Hall of Fame. But I want to know what you guys think. What evil geniuses, supervillains, and mad scientists would you like to see inducted into the Mad Genius Hall of Fame? Let me know in the comments section, and hopefully we will feature one of your favorites in the future. Just let me know. So yeah, we are about to wrap this up, but I had fun talking about Wile E. Coyote. Again, one of my all-time favorite cartoon characters, and giving a little bit of trivia and some backstory on the character. But there's one bit of trivia that we haven't answered, and that is, what does the E in Wile E. Coyote stand for? Now, there is some debate on whether this is canon or not, but according to an official Warner Brothers comic book, the E stands for Ethelbert. Go figure. So anyway, thanks you guys for watching, and that will do it for our first Mad Genius Hall of Fame inductee, Wile E. Coyote. Big round of applause for him. And yeah, this has been fun, and I'm looking forward to doing a few more of these. So stay tuned for that. Now we move on to our official unveiling of the portrait, and let's make this official and add Wile E. Coyote to the Mad Genius Hall of Fame.
So you've seen the process, and now it is time to unveil the finished portrait of Wile E. Coyote as we make him our first inductee into the Mad Genius Hall of Fame. There you go. There he is. He's going on the wall. I'll see you guys later. That is all.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me here in the Art Lab. There's a lot of other great content on the channel, so click that subscribe button and you won't miss a thing. If you're an aspiring evil genius, visit Serkworks.com for all your mad science supply needs. And if you want to contact me, hit me up in the comments section or follow me on social media. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then.